our series of workshops on gender, race, and entrepreneurship, which is supported by the Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, which is supported by the Government of Canada and headed up by our friends at Ryerson University. Despite all of the attention on diversifying entrepreneurship, very little progress has been made. And so one of the questions is how we can get unstuck. And this research that we're hearing is really generating deeper insight into those challenges, as well as helping us think about, well, what do we still need to know? What is the future research agenda going to be?
Thank you everyone for participating into this exciting event. So over the 6 next week, so we are going to talk about gender, race, and entrepreneurship, and we hope you will enjoy this. We've learned a lot about the research at this intersection.
So I'm going to use a graph here to show you the effect. So motherhood accelerates women's transition from wage employment to entrepreneurship. Their likelihood of founding a new organization, incorporated organization, will increase by 39%, and their likelihood of becoming self-employed will increase by 15%.
Even if we get most of the women to be entrepreneurs or engineers, who will the nurses of the future be? That's why in this paper, I take a different perspective and I study men's entry into female-dominated jobs. And besides the equity concerns that I mentioned before, this is also important because of some recent important trends in labor markets. In the last decades, men have been losing their jobs, especially on the left tail of the skills distribution. And this has been partly reflected in a declining labor force participation by men. At the same time, the demand for female-dominated jobs, think about education, social work, or healthcare, has been growing and is expected to grow even more in the future.
Just to summarize and conclude here, we do observe quite a substantial gender gap in tech, even compared to what we might consider traditionally male-dominated industries, especially if we consider the relative or the risk set. Tech is particularly, the situation looks particularly bad in tech. But we do notice that this varies a lot by seniority. And so for more junior positions, that's where the difference is really stark. And maybe, we care more about C-suite and some of those executives because they might be creating more valuable companies.
And what I find in this paper is that, yes, better access increases the levels of female entrepreneurship. It is correlated with younger female entrepreneurs and better survival rates of their business, and with some improved success rates.
We conduct the first causal analysis of networking-related information frictions in early-stage venture finance. And we show that exposure to VC networking opportunities has large benefits for male, but not for female entrepreneurs. It seems like women are reaching out less, and that seems to be the channel with the most compelling evidence, which may reflect them holding themselves to a higher standard.
There's a differences in using the deliver features to judge men versus women. Okay, we all know from the earlier research that women are often judged more by the non-substantive appearance, and also there are also a huge gender bias in the venture investing world. And what did we find? That VCs are using the pitch features differently when they're judging entrepreneurial companies with man versus women as founders. And what we find is that women are judged more on the delivery. Basically, if a woman does not show, or a female co-founder does not show all those kind of positivity, enthusiasm, or warmth in the delivery, the punishment of not funding is doubles or triples that of a male founder.
We show evidence that the composition of beta testers on the day of launch impacts the growth and survival of products even a year after launch, and that female-focused products experience lower growth and survival, but the gender gap disappears on days when more female beta testers or beta testers with more female preferences are exogenously on the platform.
Women seem to benefit substantially from formality, from being formally registered. This has implications for the way we think about informal and formal markets and how they work. And the literature on these kinds of economies has largely ignored the issue of gender, especially as it pertains to the performance of entrepreneurs, so their profits. And I think the results indicate that
does female recovery assistance act as a mediator? And again, we have outcomes from 4 models: county level change, whites, blacks, and Latinos. And once we account for female recovery assistance, we see that across all groups, damage no longer is a significant impact on self-employment outcomes, and that whites are the only group that experience self-employment increases when female recovery assistance increases. Thus, once we account for FEMA aid, Latinos no longer see self-employment rates increase.
Now, which type of issuers use these brokered offerings? Here again, the dependent variable is 1 if you use any kind of brokered offerings, and 0 if you place the offering directly. You can see that minority entrepreneurs are no more likely to use a broker, but we can see that female founders here, and again, if you're interested in how I'm defining minority female, I have an internet appendix where I go into a lot of detail on how I do this, but you can see that female founders are a lot more likely to use a broker. When we think about female founders as being constrained, it makes sense that it might require some type of help in order to raise the funding they need for their projects.
The other thing is that there's shadow entrepreneurs in existing businesses, and those are usually women, which is the partner to the male owner on the name of the business, and their wife is working alongside them, or their partner is working alongside them, and might not get the title of the entrepreneur, but they absolutely are in a co-owning situation.
I think for me, at least, particularly at the level of some of the biases and some of these sorts of things, is to try to understand what causes, experimentally even, what makes that go away. So for example, if I'm of this race or gender, does saying I have an MBA from Harvard cause that effect to go away? If I have a referral from some, very high-powered person, does that, what is it? What is it in the sort of system that causes those things to kind of, at least the differences to really decrease?
One point on the different theories, so the statistical taste and miscalibrated beliefs and stereotypes. At the heart of everything but taste is this idea that the gatekeepers that we're talking about can learn and gain experience. And so in terms of research, thinking about where we can go, I think there's a natural sort of panel / time series component to these theories that hopefully with enough data and some people tracking this stuff by, say early stage financing markets or startup data, we should see, presumably we're all learning more, right? Part of this exercise, for example, we're all learning more. VCs are experiencing the Me Too movement in ways they didn't expect. And presumably that's a learning environment, a learning event.